Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a review of the wonderful new performance of Symphony Number 0 by Bruckner. Yes, they're back, and with good reason. Not because of the performance, which is splendid, but because of this wretched, awful symphony that should never, ever have been revived. I want to read you a little quotation from the great Donald Francis Tovey, who wrote the following. The musical culture of Great Britain will probably be the better for the rise of a vogue for Bruckner and Mahler, and perhaps Mahler will do us more good than Bruckner, because his mastery will discourage the cult of amateurishness, which keeps us contented with ignorance and ready to believe that ineptitude is noble in itself. Oh, what a wonderful line that is, isn't it? Because if there was ever a piece of music which is demonstrably inept, it is Bruckner's Symphony Number 0. And Bruckner thought so. That's what's so fascinating about it. You know, the idea that ineptitude is noble is exactly what is happening amongst the Bruckner people who call for the revival of this as a legitimate work of Bruckner, which it is not. He didn't think it was. He disavowed it. True, he did not immediately consign it to the flames, and he saved it, and it sat around, probably because he might have thought, well, it has a good idea or two, and it does. I must say, the opening of the Adagio is lovely. The rest of it sucks. The scherzo is tons of fun. The scherzo has nothing wrong with it at all. But the outer movements, oh my goodness, they are such bow wows. They are so completely inept and so demonstrably inept. I mean, consider the first movement. Let's just talk about the first movement. First of all, I mean, there's the joke, of course. Bruckner tried to get it performed, and whoever the conductor in Vienna said, well, where's the first theme? Because it doesn't have one. And it doesn't. It's just an ostinato waiting for a tune that never arrives. But that's not the problem with it. The problem with it is that ostinato, that bum, 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 do 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 do, with that marching tread underneath, persists virtually through the entire exposition. The result of that is what Brahms called, when he described Bruckner symphonies, the boa constrictor effect. In other words, the phrasing is so monotonously dull. It's excruciating. It's absolutely excruciating. It's horrible. It makes you want to just like run away screaming. It's terrible because no matter what's happening on top, you've got this blup, 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 blup. Now, give Marcus Poschner credit. He understands that this is the problem. There's no real solution for it. The music is what it is. But one of the things he does, and it's very interesting because on the one hand, it's an acknowledgement of the fact that the music is worthless. On the other hand, it's a very smart gambit to try and disguise the fact that the music is worthless. What he does is he varies the tempos between sections as much as he humanly can without totally messing up the overall, the larger structure, in order to create a variety of expression and of mood and atmosphere, which Bruckner never intended, or he may have, but he didn't, I mean, maybe he would have, had he published the thing, actually indicated more, tempo variation and whatnot, or thought, or if he'd actually heard the damn thing just once, he would have realized, what a mess he'd gotten himself into, and he would have revised it to get himself out of it. Of course, even if he revised it, it wouldn't have made any difference, because then there would only be 2 or 3 versions of the same horrible symphony. We would be going back to the original worst of all version to try and convince ourselves that we were all right and Bruckner, the composer, who knew what he wanted, was wrong. Wrong to discard this piece of trash, which is just what it is. Now, some people say, well, it sounds so much like Bruckner. It does. It absolutely does. Bruckner was a composer who had such a characteristic style that everything he wrote symphonically sounds like him. except for the school symphony, that really early one. That doesn't sound like anybody. But this symphony is recognizably Bruckner. You've got the chorale tunes, you've got the unison theme in the finale, you've got those spiritual, lovely, ethereal strains in the adagio. You have all of those things. But the real question, and the reason Bruckner trashed the thing in the first place, was this. Why would we want to listen to a pile of immature, undigested, potential idiomatic markers of style when we can hear fully developed, glorious, masterful, iconic exemplars of that very style in his later symphonies? Why would anyone bother? I mean, obviously, you have to really like Bruckner. I think that's crazy. I think we have an obligation to the composer to allow him to present himself to us at his best and not to second guess his every single move and not to pretend that we know what is better than he knew. Because, it's exactly what Tovey said. I mean, it's the cult of ignorance and incompetence. It's the idea that his very klutziness and sort of hatchling, fledgling, floundering around like a little chick that just popped out of its egg, and it sits there like mouth open, waiting for something to drop a worm in, I mean, who wants to watch that? It's not cute. It's not adorable. It takes 40 some odd minutes to do it. And you could be listening to great Bruckner. So why would anyone bother? I mean, let me give you one particular example of the ineptitude of which Tovey speaks. This is a passage from the recapitulation of the first movement, and it is the most abjectly helpless, completely futile collection of sequences that go nowhere, harmonies that don't justify themselves by doing anything, random passages and thoughts interrupting each other. I mean, it's just 2 minutes of complete, total incompetence. And here it is. beautifully played and recorded. I will grant that. Like I said, this is as fine a performance of Symphony Number 0 as you'll ever hear. But as they say in the math biz, 10 times 0 is still 0. No matter what you do, it's a 0. However, I have to be kind and say, look, if you want Symphony Number 0, and if you're collecting the series, and I'm keeping this, I have it. If I want to know what 0 is like, I mean, this is as wonderful a way as any I've ever heard, because Poschner really understands what the problems are. And I think it's actually kind of fascinating to hear him, tap dance around these issues and try and make the symphony sound more imposing and stronger and more coherent than it actually is. I mean, the fact that he doesn't succeed is not his fault. It's the music's fault. It's Bruckner's fault. And Bruckner knew it. But with all of that said, if you want Symphony Number 0, I cannot recommend more strongly that you get this of Symphony Number 0. It is one of the best of the worst. It really is. It's an absolutely magnificently performed total waste of time, in my view. And hey, that's just how I feel about it. I happen to trust Bruckner better than the Brucknerians trust Bruckner. I really do, because I take him at his word. And when he said this was a piece of crap, I said, who am I to challenge him? It's so obviously true. But hey, keep on listening, folks. Do whatever you like. Take care.